we haven't got that long. So, I'd just like to welcome you as the audience. And as you can see, I've asked them to bring up a little bit of light so that we're going to break through the fourth wall. This play, I sat and read the actual tale for a whole Saturday, wet Saturday afternoon, thinking, how on earth am I going to adapt this? I can't recreate the Battle of Flodden. I'm not even sure I wouldn't. So what do I sort of see in the tale that I can bring out that is maybe slightly unusual, but also has sort of some depths of interest that the audience might want to then go and look at in another way in terms of performing as well as the actual Battle of Flodden and James IV and everything else. So, I'm going to take you on a journey. It's a bit out of the box because this sort of thing isn't normally done like this. We couldn't do a full production for various different reasons, and one being funds. But we would hope that maybe we can do a full production in the course of time and apply for some funding. So any feedback that you felt like giving us would be great, because I can do some rewrites and we can obviously take it to its full course. I'd like to welcome my actors. So we have Alex, and we have Esme, and we have Jenny, and we also have John, who's not on stage yet, so I'm going to meet him in a minute. I do have a few scripts here, and I thought you might like to, if you like, I haven't got enough to give everybody, because there's actually more people than I thought would be here, but if you like a script, put your hand up, and I will, then you can follow along, and then at the moment you can't track us for lines, because we haven't actually done it. I've only got, I've got another, what, anybody else like one? Yes. Mum, I'm going to give you one. Oh, sorry, I haven't got any more scripts, so you might have to share them in. Can I speak up a bit? Well, that's a good thing to say. I will speak up a bit, and I will ask you if you can hear us as we move on down the line. So, my actors have been told, I want you to imagine that you're auditioning for a major Hollywood film without the nerves, but you also do need to speak up and speak clearly, because we aren't mic'd, and this is quite a cavernous building without the best echo, because obviously it's not a theatre, even though Duns Playfest have done a brilliant job of trying to give it atmosphere. So I'll give them a round of applause. I want you to get involved. That's the whole purpose of doing it this way. I also have worked as a choreographer and movie director. And the very first thing that you would see if the fourth wall was here is you would see us doing a dance. Now the dance is actually quite simple. It's a purvey. And you might have heard of the galliard, those images of Elizabeth sort of jumping up and down and being lifted by her partners. This is very much a presentation of this, and it's quite simple. So you can stand up if you want, or you can do it in your seats. But I'm going to get my actors to stand up, and just like to sit on the seats. It goes like this. So you imagine that you're presenting yourself at court. And it really is just step together, together. 1, 2, 3, together. It's not full of the stage. Right? So if we step back, you can do this in your seat. Right? And because it's just your feet working, nobody's going to see you. Right? So you have presenting yourself to court. You know, who's going to actually notice you? Little look one way, little look the other way. Right, so it's step together, and then 1, 2, 3, together. If you're really clever, you can do it backwards. Step together, 1, 2, 3, yes. All got that? Who do you need? Did you want a bash? Do you want one more bash? Or have you got that one? Alright, we'll do it one more time and then we'll move on. Ready? Actors? Alright, and step together, and 1, 2, 3, together. Alright, so, very simple in one sense, but I also need my actors to be, if you'd like to come there, Queen Margaret, to the front. And then we have Lady Drummond, Lady Garrison, and I'm Anne. So they would do the dance, but then get into these positions. Now I'm not going to ask them to do this now, but I would also ask them to go around in a circle, which is a bit harder because then you've got to do step together, one cross, step together. So it gets a bit more complicated, and I'm not going to ask them to do it now because that is something that we would rehearse in a rehearsal room, and then you would see the perfect final end product. So we are now here, and before we start, let's go back to your chairs, ladies. We'll start reading. Just be prepared to the next time that you're all involved. Okay? This is now starting the reading.
We are the women of James IV, or some of them, as there were many.
All with a place to be fought and won in a world of delicate balance.
Yet, within a quagmire of fact and fiction, we must focus on the ones most pertinent to this tale.
With lives crisped and crossed like glinting swords in the battle. I am the Queen of Scotland and have been married to James IV for 10 years, producing 5 children.
I beg your pardon, you have to move. And ladies.
I am the Queen of Scotland and have been married to James IV for 10 years, producing 5 children, though only one will survive to adulthood. At present, I am 24 and I will die in 1541.
I thought it was 6. I've never forgotten one of my own.
Well, neither will I. But we are in 1513 and my 6th is not yet born.
Enough! Let us continue. There is much to relate and no time for petty squabbles.
No, we must concentrate on a major battle. A significant skirmish that led to the death of a generation.
You are racing forward, as is your wont.
Meaning what exactly? Later. Now we must follow the rhythm of the music, and the steps will lead us to a destiny foretold.
I am dead. My significance already played out. But it could have been so very, very different.
So why are you here exactly?
I had his child, a daughter who is now 15 years old and married to Lord John Gordon, whose father was a favourite of the king.
Rather a loose connection, perhaps?
Not really. He might have married me had I not been poisoned with my sisters in 1501.
Dying of food poisoning was not uncommon. It was commonplace. So I continue believing it was a conspiracy.
Did I mention anything of a conspiracy?
You implied it.
As you well know, it is often not what is said, but how. And the subtleties of interpretation often go awry. Oh, we have broken our circle quickly to form.
I am Anne of Brittany, but also Queen of France. For the second time, I might add. And, aside from marrying Charles VIII and Louis XII, I have been engaged in many notable men of standing.
So the paternal politics were very successful then?
It meant that there was a peace between the Duchy of Brittany and the Kingdom of France.
It is a pity that you spent most of your life pregnant with very few surviving children.
Do you mean to be so cruel?
Not really. It's just an observation of how women were used as pawns on a chess table.
14 pregnancies has certainly taken its toll. I die next year.
But you are always scheming to the last.
I see nobody here innocent of that trouble.
I may well have been at the centre of a scheme for domestic peace for the benefit of many.
Oh, please! Your brother was Henry VIII. Everything had to benefit himself first and foremost.
Yet again, we digress. So expression of focus is always a challenge, but without steadfastness, it can only lead to downfall.
Sadly, my dates of birth and death are deemed to be of little historical significance. Yet, I was married to Sir William Heron, who appreciated my outstanding and legendary beauty.
It's a pity that your beauty had not been equally insignificant.
One must play the cards dealt by fair means or foul.
Unfortunately for you, your actions never saved Ford Castle from destruction.
But my husband survived his imprisonment.
Did he still want you after your infidelity?
You're poorly. We can all put our principles aside for survival, to reconfigure a chain of reasoning for another, more fortuitous outcome.
The dilemma is that what might be fortuitous for one can be calamitous for the other.
My husband, my king, was a good man. One with faults, perhaps, but we must never forget to remember our own.
He has certainly been recognised as the most successful of the Stuart monarchs in the books of history.
Expansion of the Scottish Navy to 38 ships and being known for his maritime expertise.
A patronage of the arts was at the forefront of his reign, and he oversaw the printing press coming to Scotland, which must have made a huge difference to the dissemination of information. His language learning was par excellence.
Yes, he could read your letter, but then so could I.
French is such a romantic language, don't you think?
Statutes of law have passed down through time, not least the introduction of compulsory schooling.
Let us not forget, though, that he also killed his father.
Not by his own hand.
There are many ways to have blood upon your hands, as well you know.
He was a child, influenced by others.
We were all children, manipulated by others. But we must still cut our own course and accept the consequences.
What was he supposed to do when the rebellious nobles wanted to go into battle?
Not least the conniving Lord Alexander Hugh, who was always whispering in his ear, trying to manipulate and control.
He was not that tall, so one wonders how he reached so far.
Do you think that small men seek greater power to make up for what they lack in stature? The commanding presence of a man is like great beauty in a woman.
There are many ways to be distracted, and decision-making is easily befuddled.
I am not sure that being befuddled excuses the part one plays in killing a parent. It hardly holds the scripture in the verse where it states, "Honour thy father and mother."
He was 15 and spent the rest of his life tormented by remorse.
And the sores inflicted on his skin from wearing the belt of iron were painfully irksome. Yet he never complained.
No, he bore it with tenacity, however heavy it became, with extra weight added by his dictate every year.
Did he ever take it off? You are so transparent, my ladies. I see that none of you wish to divulge such a secret to each other in case a preference prevailed.
It is for us to know and others never to discover.
Perhaps it was heaviest for you, Lady Heron, as the last woman to enjoy his prowess.
Men are always heavy, or heavier than us women in most instances. They bear down upon our bodies, and the issue provided makes us yet heavier. That is something with which you should be well acquainted.
Yes. Spending most of my life with child took an arduous toll.
I'm amazed you had time for anything else, for greater worldly issues. And as is documented, only 2 of the fruits from your womb grew to adulthood, so your energies are rather wasted.
Your cruelty is perplexing.
I have my reasons.
It must be observed that you, Anne, were fully able to deliver a cruelty of your own.
You make a reference to my letter, I presume.
Why did you send it?
I was calling upon the old alliance, signed in 1295, and a treaty that has existed for 218 years.
While you, my English queen, were fighting for allegiance to the perpetual peace, signed a mere 11 years ago.
The ink is barely dry on the page.
peace with England led the advancement of much progress in Scotland, to which you have already alluded. But as important as the allegiance of my husband to me, his wife, and not to be some misguided chivalrous honour to be bought with 14,000 crowns.
It was a great letter. Certainly shrewd.
Not a little cunning.
Right, excellent, right high and mighty king, as well as our dearest and most ancient ally. Great trouble and distress has overtaken a tender female who looks in vain for that protection and guidance which is due her soft and gentle sex.
We do not need to hear an exposition of your wily scribbling.
The brother of your queen, the proud and treacherous Henry, has withheld thy consort's jewels and continues to humble and oppress, so that both heaven and earth have conspired to bring misfortunes from the daring insolence of a royal outlaw.
Your talk of my brother may hold some truth, but you were playing your own games.
My appeal to James of Scotland, who never turned a deaf ear to the wailings of female distress, advanced but these 3 steps onto English ground.
So to which female wailings did he pay most heed?
Plans went ahead for battle.
Which I desperately tried to array.
How desperately? What desperate action did you take? What wailing walks did you make around the grounds of buildings afforded those of wealth and privilege? The new palace at Holyrood, Edinburgh Castle, Stirling, Linlithgow?
Pause. Can we have a bit of smoke, thank you? Bit of smoke, thanks. All right, and at this point, yep, change of photograph, change of angle. Thank you. Can you see the script now? Okay, and on you go. Oh, sorry.
Do you feel that draft?
No, but perhaps you've been reminded of large old buildings which are usually drafty cabins.
It feels more like a chill than a draft. Well, perhaps it's nothing, and only a product of my imagination, sent to distract me.
We are but human souls with much that confuses.
Confused? I'm not confused when I say that a land of peace is something to respect and hold true, in preference to rashly seeking death and destruction on the whim of those who are forever seeking greater power.
The constant drive for control and influence and financial gain.
Not forgetting the search for God's will, however elusive it might be.
Desperately trying to find answers to our questions, with the power of the church holding great sway over each and every one of us. Shall we?
Pause. This is where we go to church. So if you'd all like to put your hands together, you are now the congregation. If we were doing a film and not a theatre piece, then we would be scanning over on our large congregation of people. I'm not going to ask you to get down on your knees, because we don't have any kneelers. But yes, a bit of hand praying. You're in church. Remember that at the time, the church was an incredibly powerful influence over everyone. Ladies, we all turn and we do kneel. Get down. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Sir, I am sent to warn thee not to proceed in thy present undertaking. But if thou dost, it shall not fare well either with thyself or those who go with thee. Further, it hath been enjoined me to bid thee to shun the familiar society and counsels of women, lest they occasion thy disgrace and destruction.
powerful warning indeed, and very specific. Do not go into battle and ignore any influence from women.
Not every influence.
It seemed fairly conclusive to me. Ignore both what they say and what they do.
They might try, but rarely succeed. Well, not in my experience.
How did James react?
It filled him with superstitious dread, and he felt as though it was a warning from heaven. He was deeply unsettled and locked himself away in the palace until Alexander Hume arrived for hours of private council.
After which the preparations for battle continued, with my pleas for urgent chivalrous action still driving them forward.
I wonder if you would have been so keen for bloodshed if it had been on French soil.
The knights and nobles had already made an appeal for prudence and been ignored with enthusiastic indignation.
I would have thought that collectively they would have been more persuasive. I mean, it was their lives in the balance.
Agreed. They might have worked harder if they had any inkling that most of them would be dead in the Flodden ditch, throwing Scotland into major turmoil for the next 100 years.
But James also had their respect, affection and loyalty, and he saw himself at the head of a noble army better equipped than any had been before.
So much for misguided bravery and boyish bluster.
And of course, Hume wanted war, so belittled the warning as superstition. He played on the artful content of your letter, patronised my disturbing dreams as insignificant, and rushed James away from my arms straight into yours.
What can I say? Men are easily distracted with hungry egos that need constant refueling.
And what of your loyalty as a wife?
I used what I had at my disposal to save my own life and that of my husband. I was also rather fond of my home at Ford Castle.
That legendary beauty, compared to an Egyptian queen. Do you know which one?
Does it matter?
Oh, I would have been curious. But of course, there are only limited references to you and your wife.
I worked my way into the accounts of history.
As a minor figure?
Rather like yourself, then.
It would be interesting to know what you actually looked like.
But your beauty seems to have disappeared and become an insignificant pile of bones, no more and no less beautiful than those of others.
So be it. I always said that beauty was born when I came into the world and would die when I left it. Men are not the only sex that like to throw down a challenge.
You distracted him.
Rather well, actually. It seems that taming my pride was a distraction worth taking.
Without your own agendas driving such willful seduction, James may have listened to nagging doubt and stood down his men.
But he didn't.
As you said earlier, there are many ways to have blood on your hands.
Touché. I throw my blood-splattered hands straight back at you.
Perhaps we overestimate your influence, as Lord Hume was playing his own lethal game, knowing that the infatuation with you would drive James, distracting him from how he was about to place his life and kingdom in the scales of an unequal fight.
Oh, my soul twists in agony to think that it may all have been so different. Oh, if only he had been able to clear his mind and contemplate more deeply on his return to Capron's your bedchamber.
Okay, pause. Right, at this point, there's another whole movement section. So, ladies, what we have to create is almost like a woodland arbour, so that we are the trees, right? So, you know, but actually making an archway so that John, when he comes in, can go up the archway with a bit more smoke. Yes, Frankie, that's great. A bit more, maybe. A little bit more smoke. And he goes through us. We then can go back to our chairs.
Once already have I warned thee, in language which could not be misunderstood. Once more hear my commission. Lead back thy army to Scotland, and cease thy familiar intercourse with females. Thy heart is already captured and taken. A similar fate overhangs thy life. My authority now ends, and thy fate is entrusted to the keeping of thy judgment.
That would have done it for me. I would have returned to camp, taken down my tent, packed up my armour, mounted my horse, and headed for home.
Especially as they searched in desperation for the speaker, but could find him nowhere.
James did confine himself to his tent, but most thought he was occupied once again with an act of devotion, grown out of superstitious fear and gnawing remorse.
Well, it is always better not to ignore the finger of God when laid upon you.
He certainly stopped coming to lie with me. Though with swollen red eyes and a body dripping with perspiration, he would have lost his manly appeal and sexual allure.
You bring it back to the banal. Whatever physical delights you might have supplied were nothing while he struggled with such complex spiritual issues.
All complicated by a belief that kings are the peculiar property of him who has deputed them to watch over the interests of his creatures.
It's always better not to ignore the warnings of heaven.
So James wrote an order to return to Scotland, which his nobles took to be a good omen. And when set on a course of action, he disliked changing tactics. So the order was left to lie.
And lie some more?
While other lies were formed and could be put into action.
All complicated by monarchs being objects of human intrigue, with imposing duties of necessity often taking precedence.
And, of course, there was still the outstanding matter of a damsel of France being avenged, and a true knight preventing and providing protections to a beauty in distress.
I'll trust you to challenge my beauty by raising your own.
I didn't! Alexander Holmes did it for me.
He certainly used wonderful imagery.
The silken streamer of a lady's wimple fluttering in a breeze of fans.
Even I must accept that is difficult to resist.
As a hard-hearted, sceptical man, it's quite amazing he'd pull that out of the bag.
All tricks and lies.
As one game folds into another.
Okay, pause. Back to our trees, ladies. Right, and that's it. Thanks, Will. Sound? No, bit of fire. Bit of smoke too.
Yes, Lord Hume, my noble son. I can wear the outfit you suggest and let my flowing hair to fall. As you are aware, I do indeed have a leering eye and a finger that points with bony eeriness. And while I am old, from this camp of suitlers and hopeless, I pride myself upon being an apt scholar, with hollow voice and a powerful demeanour of lofty authority. So now you have shared your carefully scripted words, and preparations are underway. I must thank you for your considerable bag of gold. All that remains is to show me the stage and let me play my part.
The thing is, you're all sutlers and campers, because with any major battle, there are always the hangers-on, the people who cook the meal for the soldiers, the wives, the children. And at the moment, we have somebody who has been found to come and deliver his little speech because he's been paid off to be the person as the apparition. See? But, on we go. And, with the plot covertly hatched,
To ridicule a heavenly connection.
The king was rapidly dispatched.
Upon an hour suitably appointed,
where evening lane was matched,
With rows of elms, checkered moonbeams.
And cunning impostor to be snatched.
from the hungry circling birds of prey.
Sir, I told thee last night that my authority was ended. My commission has been renewed, and the failure of the skill of the deputies argues not against the wisdom and power of the principal. I understand thy order for retreat is withdrawn and another for progress issued. This vacillation will bring destruction on thy head. Return to the first resolution, and a series of happy years will be vouchsafed to thee in thy kingdom. Adhere to the second, and Scotland will send her wail of bereavement to the uttermost end of the earth. I come not again.
So more justification to end the plans for battle.
It was a script dictated and very ably learnt.
Why would Alexander Hugh want to strengthen the worries and concerns already causing James such turmoil?
He didn't. The plan was to capture the messenger, the old man, and prove that he was nothing more than an impostor commissioned by you.
Me? Well, what did I have to do with this wondrous heaven-sent spectacle?
You may see this apparition as an answer to your prayers for peace and unity.
Or, in your wish for peace, perhaps you dug deep into your own pieces of gold.
As I keep saying, as we all know so very, very well, men can be manipulated in a multitude of different ways.
Though some must be more clever, more obscure, and more mystical than others.
Oh, so perhaps such a plan does fit to your very pretty, delicately laced cap.
Your accusations surprise me, though I'm flattered that you feel I'm able to be so inventive and creative. However, there is a flaw in your accusations, as this old man, this apparition, vanished once again in the instant.
So he eluded capture.
He did indeed, despite Lord Hume desperately searching, driven by anger at his thwarted plan.
So where had the old man gone?
Sorry. Nobody knew. Nobody ever knew.
I'm beginning to wonder how the Battle of Flodden ever happened.
Indeed, terrified by the encounter, James had resolved to return across the River Tweed.
Even Home had been somewhat awestruck himself.
But he continued scheming and pretended that an old man had been found and shot. And as he lay dying, he had confessed to manipulating the deception at the Queen's request.
So, the fault was laid at my door once again.
Why would you be surprised by that, as a mere woman?
Another way to distract from the ghostly event was finding an English soldier who was tasked with drumming up a fighting spirit from James. And thus a gauntlet was thrown from Alnwick by the Earl of Surrey.
Throwing anything over the miles from Alnwick to Ford is hard to imagine.
Such a call to arms by Surrey may well have been untrue, but questioning knightly valour was not to be ignored.
It ignited a tone of defiance that might have waned, but not been quenched.
And the pendulum swung, so that honour took the place of self-preservation.
Of course, preserving my honour was part of the state of play.
On one side, perhaps, as without protection, I had been basically taken advantage of on the other.
Sadly, idle phrases blown up by the wind were deemed to be better expended in the heat of battle.
And all believed that their quarrel was just, and by the grace of God would be defended.
I wrote to him, oh my beloved husband, I wrote such intimate words of affection, sharing the ominous dreams of warning that plagued me and haunted my waking hours.
Yet your letter was never delivered, so your words of anguished love were in vain.
It was too late for any successful remonstration from anyone.
So why did he wait?
Wait, he had been waiting for the day he had set, the succeeding Friday, which unfortunately had given an advantage to the Earl of Surrey.
No. Why did he wait so long at the top of Brankston Hill?
Perhaps he was still influenced by the warning, and spent time to consider whether ignoring it would indeed be rashly perilous. Returning home to me and his family would have been so much more fortuitous. Ultimately, for everyone, he died that day.
Maybe that comforting image was rather tarnished when he reflected on how you had tried to manipulate and control.
Why would any man not want to return to the arms of a loving wife?
One who has been distracted by the enthusiastic arms of another.
Perhaps he was overconfident about weapons he had for fighting the battle, and the bank of cannons primed and ready, combined with the newly acquired 18-foot pikes.
Which were much used in Europe and could be easily effective.
That may well be, but they were not much use at the bottom of a bog against the versatility of the 8-foot English pole arms brandished with a great deal of enthusiasm and no loving intent.
And without backup from the cannons, which were unable to fire down the hill the bloodiest. Which, because they were unable to fire down the hill, the bloodiest and most savage battle ensued.
Perhaps, with an anger ever growing to his brother-in-law, Henry VIII, he was considering that a union with France would indeed be of greater benefit than a union with England.
I'm sorry to disillusion you, but the latter was already in motion, with the unity explored in our bedchamber and a son born from both English and Scottish blood.
Which may have been of less significance if so many influential and charismatic leaders had not been hacked to death in the rain-drenched mud.
I don't have that right.
Right.
Wait, what? Oh, wait. No, wait. Oh.
Yeah, just read it off mine.
Okay, thereby throwing Scotland into utter mayhem and disarray.
Perhaps he was contemplating how life would have been very different if a marriage had been arranged with me. Why? Because I am from Scottish nobility, and my country, my proudly beautiful country, would never have become tainted by entanglement with your thorny English endeavours.
That view is overly simplistic, as well you know.
I can dream. I did dream. I still dream.
Yet you hold such store by a romantic legend and cannot accept that you were just another convenient dalliance.
Rather like your own.
Which I accept unreservedly. It has meant that I, Lady Elizabeth Heron, have not been relegated to total obscurity, unlike so many other women.
Perhaps he was arrogantly sure that, as his army consisted of more men, being defeated was just not going to happen. His greater, more superior muscle power on the field would win the day. And to hell with superstitious warnings from spurious, ghostly figures.
His blood was pumping and a cry for battle burned in his loins.
With another plan from Lord Hugh daring to give weight to his invisibility.
Young nobles, dressed like him, the infallible king, were scattered throughout the troops to provide inspiration and promote fighting prowess.
Anywhere they looked, the king would be amongst them, and even an illusion, the action played out as they valiantly fought.
Running down that hill, yelling until their lungs hurt, lunging, twisting, heaving, staggering as blows cut them down.
And the earth turned from muddy brown to screaming red as one body fell upon another.
And another.
And yet another.
Until there were no others.
Obviously that whole sequence needs a bit of movement in it, because we're sitting on chairs for that length of time. But what I'd like to do is just take you back to when I want you to try and get a little bit more. You're getting a little bit in that, but I wanted you to get a bit more of like you are reading as though the battle's happening in front of you. So I think it would start where his blood was pumping and a cry for battle burned his loins. And on that, I think, Esme, you would stand up, yes, because you're imagining seeing this battle in front of you. And we have to really build the pace, the energy, and the vocals in that, as though we are the soldiers in the field. And just, you can all be soldiers too, right? Now decide which one you are, French or English. Okay?
Jean, what page is that?
That's page 22 for you.
Thank you.
22? Yep.
Yeah, probably.
22, page
Yes.
22.
Yes,
At the top
thank
it's
you.
got Lady Drummond. because I am from Scottish nobility.
Yep, got you.
Yep,
Thank
in the
you.
middle there. So his blood was pumping.
His blood was pumping and a cry for battle burned in his loins.
With another plan from Lord Hume daring to give weight to his invisibility.
Young nobles dressed like him, the infallible king, were scattered throughout the troops to provide inspiration and promote fighting prowess.
Anywhere they looked, the king would be amongst them. And even if an illusion, the action played out as they valiantly fought.
Running down that hill, yelling until their lungs hurt, lunging, twisting, heaving, staggering as blows cut them down.
And the earth turned from muddy brown to screaming red as one body fell upon another.
And another.
And yet another.
Until there were no others.
Mothers, sisters, daughters were left to wonder how the fruit of their wombs had been so vigorously wasted.
Squelched into the mud and squeezed onto the pages of a fateful and uncompromising history.
From which we either fail or struggle to learn.
Neither he nor his body came home to me. And with the passing of ignoble time, where he now actually lies is a mystery, unlikely ever to be solved.
And all ladies, 1 minute. John? Yep, can you just kind of come in? And at that point, you would just go very gently. You're the chill again. Yes, all right? So we don't see you, but you're now the chill, just sort of standing there as though, yep, and a lot of smoke now. We'd have a lot of smoke at this point. So can we just go back to the wives and mothers? Because that's when you come in. Sorry, the mothers.
The wives, mothers, sisters, daughters were left to wonder how the fruit of their wombs had been so vigorously wasted.
Squelched into the mud and squeezed onto the pages of a faithful and uncompromising history.
From which we either fail or struggle to learn.
Neither he nor his body came home to me. And with the passing of ignoble time, where he now actually lies is a mystery unlikely ever to be solved.
And in all this, what happened to the will of God?
The will of God?
Yes, God's will.
Ladies, you know so very well that God's will is often lost.
Or warped and twisted.
Often violently misconstrued.
To suit the dubious aspirations of mortal men
And women.
Okay. That's the read-through. Taking you on a bit of a journey as well, I hope. Obviously, this is the first time this has been read out aloud, and I would like to say thank you to my actors for throwing them in the deep end and coming up trumps. I hope that you could hear